Happy Wednesday, and it's a weird one today because we got one person on the road, we got another person at a rest stop on the road, and I'm the only person in their home studio. Yeah, standing still. Well, Russ is standing still, but
so far.
But yes, we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
So it looks like the Mets managerial search, which has literally been a sojourn, is still going on. And Friday is the last two interviews, Joe Espada and Buck Showalter. And I got to tell you, this is like an F, marry, kill situation for me. Like it really is. I really don't know which way I'm leaning at this point.
Well, there was another name that I saw that I can't remember who was.
It's like Quattrell. It's the third base coach of the Dodgers.
Yeah, it was like somebody who was like.
I don't think he's getting it.
Because he's a no-name guy and he's never been a manager. I think.
He's a sort of name guy.
Yeah.
But not really. Like, I remember that guy when he was a baseball player guy.
I think he's the guy that they're picking their brain so they can steal information, and then they're going to hire one of the other two. I think that's the way it's going.
Well, I'll say this because I have a place in my heart for Buck Showalter, but I don't know whether – I mean, let's just say it's going to be a real change in direction from a guy who I think was sort of controlled by the analytics group with the Mets to a guy who will take the paper that the analytics group offers him and shove it up their ass. So I mean, I don't know whether Showalter. I mean, you know, maybe
Showalter will conform because he can't get a job,
right?
And he's been with the Orioles. He was with the Orioles for so long that even the little bit of success he had with them, it hasn't followed him. Mostly the bad years of the Orioles have followed him, so he'll play ball.
Remember, Russ, his main claim to fame in Baltimore was the playoff game that he didn't use Zach Britton when Zach Britton was like Mr. Lights Out.
I can go back further, Mike. We can go back to when he let David Cone stay out in the rain and throw 130 pitches.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
David Cone hasn't forgotten that.
Well,
nor has his rotator cuff.
No,
he's kept it to himself because they're both on the Yankee broadcast. I mean,
yeah.
Cone is in the booth and Buck is in the studio. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I don't know if that'll probably be the only thing that happens in baseball until whenever the lockout happens.
Until like June 15th.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I mean, we'll probably have an abbreviated baseball season. The question is now whether we'll have an abbreviated hockey season. So let's get started here.
All right, let's get rolling.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Wednesday, December 15th, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology. I'm doing it out of order, and yeah, I'm in a rest stop, and it echoes. Thank you.
I'm Anthony Mangione from Sunrise Philly Magazine.
On the road again. And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's start with the news.
And it ain't good.
And it ain't good. 23 players yesterday. More players today. Patrice Bergeron entering COVID protocol. The league is – I don't think they're in a panic because I think they planned for this eventuality, but – all of a sudden, Russ, we'll start with you. All of a sudden, yesterday, are we going to the Olympics sort of took a back seat, and what started to be said was, is there going to be a pause? And I think it was Darren Drager and Elliot Friedman that both reported the word that was no in terms of a pause. But just the fact that was mentioned tells you that right now things are not going well.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we saw, you guys sent me a link from, I think it was from Drinks with Binks, Julie Stewart-Binks' show with
me.
With Ray Ferraro. And the thing I think Ray Ferraro got wrong was.
Well, that was a week old. That was a week old.
No, but I still think he got this part wrong.
Okay.
The part I think he got wrong was if there is no Olympics, players are not going to have 3 weeks off. They'll have 1 week off, and then they'll have to start making up whatever games they can make up. But I think that's the part Ray got wrong.
Well, here, Anthony, this is the thing that's confusing, and I'm trying to find this out because I don't know whether it's true or not. there is speculation out there that the NHL had a schedule in place if they didn't go to the Olympics that they would lighten the frequency of some of the games because the 32 games after the Olympics will be tightly packed, a lot of 4 games in 6 nights, et cetera, et cetera. Then I hear, well, the buildings are booked.
Bingo.
Now, the thing is, if the buildings are booked, then how can they have this alternate schedule? It's one or the other.
Exactly. There is no, in this circumstance, I don't know how they managed to shoehorn in an alternate schedule. It all depends on, again, where they're booked, how they kind of would have to handle the timing. We might have some game. If they may have some just oddly timed games.
Yeah,
that might be what happens in this circumstance. You might have some. If you're trying to make things up, you might get more matinee games. You might get a 12 o'clock. But again, how many people are going to be able to make those games? And the NHL is going to obviously, if they're going to run those games, they're going to probably take that cost on the chin here.
You know, the one thing I noticed, Mike, I did a little digging because you were like, it can't all be concerts. And it's not. You know what it is, too? A lot of them have like Christmas shows and holiday light themed shows.
In February?
I don't know how long they're running. Like some of them may run through New Year's. I don't know.
I think probably concerts and entertainment events and things of that sort are probably
Disney on Ice.
Likely if you have. Well, Disney on Ice tends to be, I think, I forget when that usually they usually run that at a certain time of year though, and I don't think it's in February.
But I know Trans-Siberian Orchestra shuts down on December 26th, so I don't think that they're booking buildings in February. No,
they're the pumpkin spice of bands, Mike.
That's insulting the pumpkin spice. No, but okay, but this is the thing. We've only had, I think it's less. It's not even double digits in terms of games that have been postponed. So right now, the burden in terms of making up those games is not heavy. But with the schedule the way it is right now, it's going to be tough because, what are you going to do? 5 games in 6 nights? I mean, that's really going to be a major pain in the ass. The only place where you have flexibility here is in that 3 weeks that they're off for. Now, is it possible that they will play games, even if they go to the Olympics, they will play games with teams without their Olympic players?
They could do that.
Yeah, that might be a possibility. I mean, that's going to suck for, say, Washington if Backstrom and Ovechkin and this guy and that guy are all gone.
Listen, LeBron James doesn't play every game.
And then you add to the mix. Yeah, it's true. That's kind of within the NBA what happens now. But it gets really tough, I think, to ask people if you're majority of your roster are mostly your AHL team and you're charging full price.
Yeah.
People really don't want to get a substandard product when you're charging that level. I think people will be accepting of it in a COVID situation in that circumstance, circumstances occur. But if you're got guys over at the Olympics, and your roster's decimated like that, I think people would be, it gets really tough for customers to want to spring for that.
Well, Flamester puts up, of course he's using the Leafs as the example. Flamester doesn't have it all completely right here. He's got Matthews, Marner, Riley, Matthews, Campbell from the U.S. I wrote about this yesterday. And these are the possibilities. Marner, Riley, Tavares, Canada. That's 5. Nylander, Sweden. That's 6. Kasha and Mrazek, Czech Republic. That's 8. If you count Kristians Rubins, who's playing for the Marlies but played for the Leafs.
We're not counting him, Mike.
We're not counting because he's AHL, but that's 9. So you're talking about 8 NHL players on their roster.
Alleged NHL player. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, please. But I mean, and there's no guarantee that all of them are going to make it, but that's possible. And okay, so if say they have to make up games and the players are still going to the Olympics and all 8 of those players go, then you're talking about the Toronto Marlies playing the Boston Bruins. So I mean,
yeah, it's a tough call. I still think September 9th, a lot of the NHL players will give their final say-sos, and everybody's going to have their quotes. Everybody's going to send it out on Instagram, and 90% of them are going to be like, I'm not going. And I know we're being told that certain teams are ready for that, and that's great. And that means, like on the U.S. team, you might get a couple of NHLers, like maybe 10, but not big names. That could happen, sure. But at the end of the day, I think that's where this is headed.
But so right now, what the NHL has implemented is increased protocols, meaning testing on a daily basis, making sure that players are wearing masks, I guess, telling them that they can't go out, that they can't go to parties, basically be safe. Pseudo bubble.
Well, one thing I noticed right away, Anthony, we noticed Mackenzie Blackwood wearing a mask, and that happened in the bubble, and it wasn't magically happening even for the last few weeks when protocols were supposedly tightened. So that's what I'm saying. I think players lightened up on protocols in their own locker rooms, in areas like that, and I think they need to tighten it up too. It's not all that, but
did we get word, by the way, because Blackwood was described as not feeling well playing through the 2 periods of last night's game, and then obviously Schmidt came in. Have we gotten any updates so far with regards to what was ailing Blackwood?
No.
So I was just curious.
So you're saying it wasn't suckage, it was something else?
No, that was according to Lindy Ruff. Lindy Ruff said in post.
Yeah, all right. Do we believe Lindy Ruff? That's the question.
I mean, I'm not going to question him with regards to if his player wasn't feeling well and was gutting it out for 2 periods.
But then if he's not feeling well, why would he sit on the bench? You would just have him leave. He was still on the bench, so I don't think it was anything severe. It may have been something slight, but
but it was enough that it put it. I don't know.
Lindy does tend to protect his guys. Yes, Mike, is that true?
Sorry, I was just.
I said Lindy does protect his guys unless they're Russian, right?
Yes. Yeah. There's a Russian exception, definitely.
Right.
If your name is Nikushkin or Afinagenov or yeah. I just got this note here, and this is where. Okay, first of all, the increased protocols will last until January 7th, so through the holidays, and could be extended. So that's one thing. I just got this note from my compadre Rob Del Mundo, who I cover the Leafs with for the Fischler Report. In Ontario, in the province of Ontario, capacity limits in sports venues now reduced to 50% in Ontario. So that means that you won't have 19,000, you'll have 9,500 max.
Yeah.
That is okay. That's going to curb revenue.
Yeah.
And that, remember, they're projecting $5 billion. And believe me, the reason they want to play all these games, the reason they're not canceling, the reason they're not postponing is bottom line. They've lost money. They need to keep the games going. They need to keep the people coming.
So here's my thing. I get that, but then you are better off pausing the league and just letting it go further into the season, like 2 weeks further than you expected.
Yeah, but then you run into building availability going into May, June, July.
Whatever, and maybe it's not that bad. I mean, at least you won't lose the revenue. If you're starting to go 50%, like they didn't count on that this year for sure.
Yeah. So this is the one thing that we can be thankful for is that of the 23 players that were placed in COVID protocol yesterday, the report that I saw was 21 of the 23 are asymptomatic or not having serious symptoms. Now that is probably because everybody except Tyler Bertuzzi was given the vaccine or took the vaccine, and I guess part of this new protocol is that they would encourage any players that can get the booster to get the booster. I think this is the thing. I think you're going to have a problem with that because there are players that have basically said, okay, I'm going to get the vaccine. I'm going to get the 2 shots because I want to play. You can suggest them getting the booster. You can't say they're not fully vaccinated if they don't have the booster.
No, you could say that, Mike. They're a private employer. The NFL is getting close to doing that with everybody. team employees, everybody.
Yeah, but the NFL is also saying there are people who are in NFL circles that are saying don't test them if they're not symptomatic.
Which is honestly stupid as hell.
That's just to save money. Anthony's right.
That is a health. In that case, that I have real issues with that.
Yes.
Right. Now we're going to do an abbreviated show since Russ is on the road and Anthony is also. But Russ has got a long way to travel to get back home. Just talk about some of the games last night. And Russ, we've been talking about the Sabres who won 4-2 in Winnipeg, and Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, their prospect goaltender. It's strange. Malcolm Subban, they trade for him. He immediately in his first start gets hurt, which has been a theme of Malcolm Subban throughout his career. Dustin Tokarski is recovering from COVID. Aaron Dell is just horrible, and Craig Anderson's out week to week. So they were forced to play Luukkonen last night. I believe it was his fourth straight start, and he played great. And
they weren't forced to play him 4 starts. They weren't. They were forced to play him the first one. They certainly could rotate with Dell, but again, I don't know what this team is trying to prove with him at the age of 22 playing 30-something pro games. It doesn't matter if he looks good today. Today's not your issue. The issue is in a year or a year and a half when all of a sudden he goes on a losing streak, and then you're like, uh-oh, what do we do? Do we send him down to the AHL now? Do we try and ride this out? Is he going to become, somebody else that we've had before that, has had issues? Like, it's just, again, you don't want him to become Carter Hutton. You want him to be the franchise guy. But when does this end, Mike? I mean, do they think they're going to make the playoffs by playing him? No, of course not.
And I thought that they were going to bring him up later in the year when, at like say February, March, to give him a taste. But this is the thing, Anthony. This is sort of eerily similar to what happened with Carter Hart. And we've, Russ and I have gone on and on about, the fact that the Flyers rushed him. And I think we've seen sort of holes in his game and holes in his development because they rushed him. Luukkonen, in terms of ECHL and AHL games before, he played 4 games in the NHL last year, but he had 34, 48, 60 pro games in the AHL or the ECHL over 3 seasons. He played 4 games in the NHL last year, did not play particularly well, and then got hurt. This year, he's played 4 games. He's got a .939 save percentage and a 1.99 goals against. So all of a sudden, they think they have friggin' Dominik Hasek. And it's and this organization needs a goaltender bad, but I don't know whether him playing well right now is the best thing for him.
I mean, I also, again, I do it with the Sabres having light attendance to begin with. We've talked about this before, the pressures of sometimes, giving the crowd the future in front of them, to give them something to look forward to or a reason to go to the rink.
Right.
And I think there may be a little bit of that comes with them playing Luukkonen as Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen as much as they are.
Right.
The Flyers situation was kind of a weird one with Hart. Again, we all know the circumstance of injuries and everything else. Could they have sent him back down? Sure, but again, he had earned that job. He had earned the job.
Yeah, here's my problem. It is about 35, 36 AHL games. I'm not counting the ECHL with Luukkonen, and because again, the ECHL is really pretty substandard. But also, Mike, he has never in a pro season, other than the ECHL, played over 14 games.
Right. And
which is a big problem.
And his stats this year with the Amherst, who are I think second place in their division, his save percentage was .888, not exactly stellar. So, they were forced to bring him up because of injury and sickness. I get that. But now all of a sudden, since he's had so what are you going to do? Wait until he gets pummeled and gives up 7 goals. Then his confidence gets crushed. And by the way, now you're going back to Rochester.
Yeah.
So, Anthony, were you at the Flyers game last night?
No, I was not at the Flyers game last night.
So the Flyers 6-1.
I was home, did watch it, covered it for the most part. So
yeah, same here.
So they win 6-1 over the Devils.
Mm-hmm.
One of the side stories here was Morgan Frost was pulled in the middle of the game because he's in COVID protocol. But
Now let me just stop you there because I want to get Anthony's feel on that too. Anthony, when that happened, that was the first thing that crossed my mind.
I wasn't. It didn't, since I didn't see any kind of obvious injury,
And neither did I.
and in that circumstance, that kind of was my thought. But again, you needed to get confirmation with regards to it. I was like, if he's getting pulled and there wasn't, and I'm going back, I'm like, there wasn't an obvious shift where he was hurt. So the only thing that I could logically think was at that point, I didn't put anything out on social, but that, and you don't do that obviously in this circumstance until you get the actual report, was that a COVID positive might have been involved. And lo and behold, in this circumstance, we don't know he's positive yet. We just know that he was put into protocol.
Right. I mean, the Flyers played well. Atkinson with the hat trick, but again, I'm not completely sold on the Devils right now in terms of them, how complete of a team they are. I mean, they're playing well. They've got some good talent. I think Jack Hughes is an excellent young player. I like some of the other pieces that they have.
Although yesterday he was a -4, but yeah, normally.
Right. But I mean, exactly. But he's young and he's still, he can still have those sort of gaps in his game. And Blackwood, I think, is a good goaltender. But from what you were saying, Anthony, Blackwood was not good last night.
There was definitely the goal that Braun scored was.
Oh yeah.
He absolutely should have had. That was like.
That thing was fluttering. It was fluttering.
That was a knuckle puck and it fluttered, but I didn't think it was a case where he shouldn't have been able to block it into the corner. And the fact that he missed it, he definitely looked behind the play a bit at times.
I will say that
the Devils did as a team as well. I thought that, they weren't. There was a lack of crispness to their game. Almost reminded me a little bit of the Flyers a week or so back, in terms of they looked like pretty disorganized compared to Philadelphia, which again, that welcome to hockey season.
No, it's true. I felt like probably from like 3 minutes or 4 minutes into the game, the Devils were giving the Flyers way too much space. And I think Atkinson was the first one to kind of notice it and exploit it. And he was a real fire starter, and he's done that in a few games this year. So I give Atkinson credit. He's been able to take over some games this year and get the Flyers wins.
And off the record, and also, I mean, Atkinson, as good as he was, I thought, even though I think only 1 point last night, Giroux really, I thought it was a really overall dominant performance out of Giroux, despite despite the point totals not necessarily showing that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's funny, sometimes I have to tape shows for like Locked On Flyers out of sequence. And so a show that hasn't even aired yet, I was saying that because I was asked about Atkinson and I brought up Sanheim, and I said I at least like Sanheim's zone entries and things lately that led me to believe he would start playing better, even though he doesn't have a lot of points. And he did put some of that together last night. So, that's a good thing for them too. They're still not out of the woods yet, but
no, they're not. But I would say also that this was certainly one of the better performances from the Sanheim Ristolainen.
Yes,
I mean, they were strong, and I think certainly frustrated Hughes in that game.
Oh yeah.
Well, the injury to Jonathan Bernier, which apparently is extremely serious. They say it's a hip. And last night when Blackwood was pulled, they brought in Akira Schmid, who I've never heard of before, but he played pretty well for Utica. But they apparently want him to develop because he's only 21 years old. And they traded for John Gillies, Russ, who was just signed to an NHL contract by St. Louis when Binnington was out with COVID.
And prior to that, was on a PTO with the Phantoms.
Yes, he was. Listen, I mean, I had a lot of hope for Gillies when he was I think he was a Calgary pick, but then he had he had really good years. In college, he had dominant years. And then he had double hip surgery, and he's a big guy. And then we started to see like a little decline in his game. I hope he rebounds. I do, but I don't know if it's going to happen.
Right. Another interesting goalie situation, Russ. I heard Elliot Friedman talk about this morning, is Spencer Knight with the Panthers. He gives up an 8th spot to the Ottawa Senators last night. They just picked up Jonas Johansson on waivers from Colorado, and there is some speculation that they may want Spencer Knight to go down to the American Hockey League and get some work. Now
It's possible.
I didn't know he was struggling that much. I had just assumed.
Yeah, I saw some bad games recently.
Yeah, so I'm just looking up his stats right now. So I mean, 342 goals against, 6-4-2 record, 892 save percentage for a team that is, one of the best in the league. That's, I mean, he is only 21 years old.
Yeah,
20. He's 20.
20. So I mean, it's fine if he goes back down for a while and gets a tune-up. I'm fine with that. I mean, they're in good shape, Florida. I mean, they really are. Again, I still think they're coming out of the East. I do.
Now, Anthony, the Golden Knights beat the Bruins yesterday, a shorthanded Bruins, without Marchand, and now, Bergeron I think played in that game, but now he's positive today. But they won 4-1. Vegas won 4-1 over the Bruins, and the story with the Golden Knights is their line of Pacioretty, Stevenson, and Stone has been dominant since those players came back, and that Jack Eichel may be back in January. I heard that report today, and I can't believe it, but I think it's hype. But
he wants to get. I'm sure he's pushing to get back that soon, no question. But he has to be careful. He has to be careful with this. He's now got a long-term opportunity here with Vegas. I don't think you want to take. And I'm sure there's a little bit of pressure too, because Vegas wants to, they make that trade. They want to solidify their lineup as soon as possible so they can, begin that ascent again in the Pacific Division.
Right.
I mean, who's going to be the player in the league that tests him and slams him up against the boards? Because it's going to happen.
Brendan Lemieux. He's on LA, same division. He'll do that.
Possible. Yeah.
Couple other games, and we'll get going here. Red Wings beat the Islanders 2-1. We were supposed to have Kevin on the show, but some logistical issue. We'll have him on Friday, and we'll talk to him about this. But he wrote about the fact that he thinks that the Islanders still mathematically have a way of pulling out of this death spiral and getting back into the race. Well, Russ, they lose to the Red Wings in regulation 2-1. They're 7-12-5.
It's over for them.
I don't know how. I don't know. I don't see how.
It's over. I mean, I saw yesterday there was a report that over this in the offseason they were looking at Chychrun and they were looking at Laine, and again, and the Chychrun price was high. The Islanders don't have the assets anymore that they could afford to trade for Chychrun, and if they trade short-term assets for Laine's going to go sign somewhere else, and that's then you're just pushing assets into the mix, to the table here, to see if somehow you can get back into the playoffs where they have no chance of being in the top 3. So literally their only chance is to be a wild card team, and they'll be among like 6 teams going after 2 spots, maybe 7 teams. That's a tough way to go. I don't think they can do it.
Anthony, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot at this point. I'm sort of in between. It's tough for me to count the Islanders out completely. But I think once the calendar once we get to around mid-January or so, if there's no sign, if we're talking literally about a month from now, like January 15th, and they're still in this spiral, I think at that point I will probably come over to Russ's side and say that they're out of it.
Yeah. A couple of the games, Russ, I don't know if you got a chance to see the Avs and the Rangers.
No, I didn't.
The Avalanche win 4-2. Lindy Ruth's favorite, Valerie Nichushkin, with a couple goals.
Listen, let's talk about Nichushkin for a minute, because in this draft year, he was a hell of a player, hell of a prospect. He didn't do great with Lindy. He had a great rookie year, and then he got hurt. He was a hip injury. Yeah. So then he goes back to the KHL. He comes back. I think the Avs have done everything right with this kid. And now he looks like a guy who could score 40 points in the league, which, again, isn't what people thought he would be. But you know what? he is still hard to handle on the ice because he's got great hands, he's got good speed, and he's a big body. And so I like what he's doing. I would hope that this game would show Ranger fans and some of the just some of the media in general, that when the Rangers were red hot, sure, they looked like they could be as good as the Avs, but honestly, they don't have the offense that the Avalanche does. Nobody does. I mean, the Avalanche has games where they score 7 goals. Like, nobody has this kind of offense.
We all saw that in Philadelphia.
What this tells you is that, you know, it's worth the roll of the dice to take a chance on a player with talent who is sort of struck out someplace else. And Nichushkin, that one year, 2018-19, when he came back from the KHL, he played 57 games. He had 0 goals.
I remember that.
And Dallas wiped their. I think they bought him out. I think it was.
Yeah.
And then Colorado signed him on a league minimum deal. And in 3 years, he scored 13, 10, and now this year he's got 9 goals in 17 games.
Yeah.
He's going to score 20 goals, and he's going to make a shit ton of money because he's a big body.
Yep.
So the other game, which I thoroughly enjoyed watching, because I thoroughly enjoy watching Mikko Koskinen give up bad goals, which is
You're a bad dude, man. You thoroughly enjoy someone's misfortune who's never done anything terrible to you. What is wrong with you?
Well said, Anthony.
like the teacher that he is. But the Maple Leafs thoroughly dominated the Edmonton Oilers 5-1. And this is the thing; it's really strange. Connor McDavid, when he plays the Leafs, especially in Edmonton, he does not play like Connor McDavid. He was shut out, I believe, in all 3 of the games that they had 3 games back to back last year in the when it was the Northern Division, and the Leafs held them, I think, pointless. And then last night they held McDavid and Draisaitl pointless and held them to 5 shots in the entire game. I mean, and this proves out what I've been saying about Edmonton. You know, okay, you can go out and sign Zach Hyman. You don't have depth at forward. If McDavid and Draisaitl don't score, you're in deep trouble. Your defense is not great. There's some good players there, but it's not. And your goaltending sucks. And until you improve your defense and your goaltending and have some depth at forward, you're going to have to depend on McDavid and Draisaitl to carry the bulk. And they can't do it every night.
When does Mike Smith come back?
I don't know when. I don't. Yeah.
So
Mike Smith's not walking through that door.
So you can't wait on Mike Smith, who's 100, but sometimes can be good. And you have Stuart Skinner there. And the amount of games that they're playing Koskinen has to be on Dave Tippett. Like, why in the world would you not have Stuart Skinner playing a little bit more, considering his numbers are good? Like, he's been pretty good. And again, I don't know, man. It's slipping away from them. They better watch it. I will say this about Matthews, though, Mike.
Yes.
I do get an Esposito flashback when I see Matthews scoring those goals on the side of the net. Yeah. Phil used to do that, and like everybody looks at Phil now and like, you know, he's an older guy, bigger, heavier guy. Even with the Rangers, he was sort of a bigger, heavier guy. But man, you want to talk about hands near the net and putting the puck in the net quickly? Esposito could do it.
But Russ, he's doing that, and then he's also the second goal that he scored his 20th on the year. It was a turnover in the offensive zone. He's at the face-off circle, and his wrist shot is probably stronger than some players' slap shots.
Oh yeah, no question.
Snapped it by Koskinen, and he barely moved. So I mean, yeah,
that's going to keep Koskinen from winning the Vezina now.
Yeah. Okay, here you go. Last 4 games: 5 goals on 40 shots, 4 goals on 26 shots, 3 goals on 31 shots, 5 goals on 25 shots.
He's good for 5. We know that.
That's what I call great goaltending from Mikko Koskinen. We'll end it on that high note.
Cam's not going to like us. Sorry, Cam.
Sorry, Cam. Just send us another message on Instagram. For Anthony Mangione, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just